Okay, fingers crossed it's going to work this time. So, uh, yes, so my name is Becky Mail, and like I said at the first time, I'm going to be talking about working with archives and how Wikipedia has impacted on that. I have been a volunteer at Glasgow Women's Library since the start of 2019. Glasgow Women's Library is the only accredited museum dedicated to women's histories kind in the UK, and our collections are recognised as nationally significant by the Scottish Government. It's the kind of place where you go to do one thing and you wind up doing a whole bunch of things, but the thing that I'm going to talk about today that's relevant is that I do digitisation, which means I get objects out of the archive and take very, very high quality pictures. Now, for Wikipedia, for my very first workshop, I was asked if I would be interested in, so our curator at the Women's Library asked me to photograph something we had in our archive called the suffragette penny. And then when I saw the list on the protesting suffragettes list of objects of pages they'd like created, I was like, oh, that's really exciting. However, as everybody knows, building a new page is not a beginner's job. So I decided the sensible thing to do would be to work on the Hunger Strike medal, which was a similar object, similar space, and because that seemed like a great place to start. And I fell pretty hard into a dopamine rabbit hole and went a little harder with it than I anticipated. So this is a picture of the medal, and I overhauled quite a lot of the page. When I started, it had 36 references. By the time I'd finished, it had 153. And had gone from 17,500 bytes to almost 53,000 bytes. Anyway, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the medal, but the most important thing I did was medal recipients. So I found sources for pretty much every single medal recipient. And I think at last count it was something like 81 or 82. The very exciting thing to follow up to this is that in October this year, the Women's Library purchased their own medal, and it's the very first object the Women's Library have ever purchased, which belonged to Maud Joachim. And the minute I heard it was happening, I immediately emailed our director of operations and was like, so you know, I did a load of work on the Wikipedia article on this, don't you? And was like giving her all this information about the medal. And we got to see it at the last Wikipedia workshop that Protesting Suffragette did at the Women's Library at the end of October. So at the very next Protesting Suffragette workshop in April of 2022, I built the suffragette penny page, and the major source I used for it was by Tom Hockenhall, who is the coin curator at the British Museum. And all of this is based off the penny held in the British Museum. And I discovered from that there are probably no more than about a dozen known. And the very important thing is they have incredibly distinct stamping. So after that, I went back to the Women's Library, and I was in there of an afternoon, and I was just poking through the archive, and I went, let's have a look at ours. So this is the first one. I mean, you can tell, first of all, those edges are very shiny. It's very new. And give women votes was not a phrase that was commonly used at the time. So there's a very good chance that one is fake. This is the second one. Okay, votes women. It's the right phrasing. But again, the typography is just off. It's just wrong. This is the third one. And this is the one that was most exciting because it looks so similar. And I mean, I was in the archive on my own on a Friday afternoon, and I think I may have made a very slightly unholy high-pitched noise when I saw it. So the question is it real? Well, the honest answer is we don't know. There's a lot of similarities. We contacted the British Museum, had a little chat with them. The really important thing about this is provenance, and we can't prove it because we don't know where it was prior to the point at which knowledge about the suffragette penny came into existence as a general thing. So there's a lot of fake ones out there, but if this one is real, we need to be able to trace it back to before 2010, when the suffragette penny became a cultural phenomena. It could be. Equally, it could be a really, really good forgery, which from a women's history and a marginalized history perspective is really exciting, because someone would bother to fake it. But we only know that there is a possibility it might be real because I sat down and I wrote the suffragette penny article and did all this research for it, and then went into the archive and looked at the object. And then the really exciting thing is that the most recent protest and suffragette workshop, sorry, not the most recent, the October protest and suffragette workshop, another participant came along and expanded my original article, and it's now twice the length it was when I started. And I've never been so happy to see my work completely altered, because we now have even more information about the penny and more ways to counter misinformation and possibly find more instances in archives and in coin collections of genuine pennies. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Becky. I love that story, and it was I got to see the items at that workshop, and just absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. It is just a delight to see how your wiki work has fed into your archive work and your archive work into your wiki work. So thank you so much.